After over a decade of India and Bangladesh enjoying very cordial ties, over the past 2 years, ties between the two countries have almost nosedived. And especially after the fall of the Sheikh Hasina regime and the ascent of Muhammad Yunus, who happens to be a Nobel laureate, whom many geopolitical commentators have pointed out has not really behaved like one, have the ties between the two countries have deteriorated even further. Now, in February 2026, the people of Bangladesh chose a new government led by Tariq Rahman, who happens to be the son of Khaleda Zia, the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh. But what has been significant is that even as the two countries were trying to normalize ties, a fresh tussle is now being witnessed on the border of India and Bangladesh, with India starting to push back illegal immigrants who had entered Bangladesh for the past several years. Now, to understand what is going on the ground and also the repercussions of the same on India's relationship vis-a-vis Bangladesh and also South Asia in general, I have with me someone who has had the feat of being the first woman High Commissioner to Bangladesh. She has also been served in Malaysia. She served at the UN and also the most strategic neighbor of India, that's Bangladesh. I'm talking about Ambassador Veena Sikri. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you here with India Abroad.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Let's start with what's happening right now. Recent developments, the border is witnessing dramatic scenes. How do you assess the situation? Bangladesh has just got a new government under Tariq Rahman. But even as the two countries were trying to normalize ties, we now see a fresh thorn between the road. How do you analyze and what do you see in the future for the ties?
Well, you were right in your assessment that Bangladesh-India ties have on the whole been very good for the last, I would say not 10 years, I would say even
much more
actually. Of course, we fought together in 1971 for the liberation of Bangladesh. And after that, we've had excellent relations with Sheikh Mujibur Rahman before he was assassinated. But then, of course, there were military rule in Bangladesh for quite some time. But when it returned to democracy, we have tried our best, from 1991 onwards, we've tried our best always to have good relations. Bangladesh has been a very special neighbor. We have a huge 4,000-kilometer border and so on. But one of the issues with Bangladesh, and this is perhaps because we have this long land border and the maritime border with Bangladesh, and of course we have, the West Bengal, northeastern states, very sensitive areas in India. So security issues have always been a big factor in bringing good relations between India and Bangladesh. And most of the reason that when Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina came to power in 2009 with the 3/4 majority, and then she was there for the next 15 years, she immediately said, I will respect India's security red line. And so that meant that, no support for India's Northeast insurgent groups and so on. And so our other relationship, economic, trade, connectivity, investment,
flourished.
People, all that flourished. Now, ever since the ouster of Sheikh Hasina and coming of Muhammad Yunus as the chief advisor, but it was backed by the Jamaat-e-Islami. That is the most important. The Jamaat-e-Islami has been the power behind the throne ever since July, August 2024. And I would say even today it's trying to exercise a role much larger than what one would expect, considering that the BNP government has got a 2/3 majority in parliament.
Absolutely.
Immediately during these last 18-20 months, you've seen how Yunus brought in a lot of changes in the trading pattern. There was such good trade, economic connectivity, but he destroyed that balance. And of course, it adversely affected Bangladesh. So many factories closed down, hundreds and thousands of women became unemployed. And women suffered a lot during the last 18 months because the Jamaat-e-Islami tried to impose their view of life and how it should be. It was very, very difficult indeed. And now that Tariq Rahman has come back, one is looking forward and has been looking forward to an improvement in the relationship. But right now, as we've seen, that what you are describing, two things have happened. First of all, Tariq Rahman so far has not said anything about things like India security red line, support for Northeast insurgent groups, because in the last 20 months, these insurgent groups have come back to Bangladesh. They were not there for the last 15 years. They've come back. Then we've seen the Jamaat-e-Islami, whose views we very much know on relationship with India. They have won all along the border with India, the West Bengal India border. The Jamaat-e-Islami on the Bangladesh side has won all those seats.
Right.
So we have, and then we've seen that I must bring an account of the fact that when Mamata Banerjee lost her chief ministership, and Suvendu Adhikari has become the first BJP chief minister of Bangladesh, I think that this has been a tremendous change, a point of inflection in the relations between India and Bangladesh, because immediately we've seen that Chief Minister Suvendu Adhikari has been absolutely a no-nonsense approach. And he said, I don't want any illegal immigrants here. Now, India is not pushing back anybody. People are going back of their own free will. Because combined with Suvendu Adhikari coming to power as chief minister, the government of India has also adopted a lot of new rules about illegal immigrants and saying they're going to be kept in camps and detention centers have been set up. And Suvendu Adhikari says, I'm not going to the courts. It is detect, delete, deport, So a lot of people are going back on their own. I've seen visuals, I've seen interviews with the people at the border. They're there in large numbers. And they all said, not one has said, I'm an Indian citizen. All have said we are Bangladeshi citizens. They have their Bangladesh ID cards, and Bangladesh ID cards are made by their army. They are, biometrically done, and they are, foolproof evidence of citizenship. So they have their ID card, and they said, yes, we came as illegal immigrants. We were given Aadhaar and voter cards and ration, everything. They're saying all that. So really speaking, they want to go back, and although the BGP, the border guards of Bangladesh, have tried to talk about pushing, but let me tell you, they make a noise during the day. At night, all the people quietly go back.
But ma'am, if I may just highlight one issue, in the Panchagad area, the BJP and BSF came face to face. There were heated discussions, and subsequently, at least 10 persons who were pushed back by India have had to be taken back by India. Now, how do we see these kind of incidents?
No, actually, in the Panchagad area, what you said, similarly, there was an incident even in Shillong like that. Now, in Shillong, for example, the person was in question was a Hindu, and the BSF, our border security force, was sending him back because actually he's a Bangladeshi citizen. And he had actually been pushed in by the Bangladeshi, by the BGB, Border Guard Bangladesh, and the Indian side found that he's not an Indian citizen, so they were sending him back. Ultimately, they had to let him in. In Panchagad, I don't know whether they were, there was still, there's no finality on that, because I think the people who have come back, I don't know whether they've not proven to be Indian citizens at all yet. But whether their ID cards are Bangladesh, that may be a little bit of a dispute on some cases.
No, in fact, the very reason why they had to be taken back by India was that it couldn't be proven that they were Bangladeshi citizens.
But they may have been, they may have come to India even before the Bangladesh ID cards were established, which was done in around 2007 or 8. So, basically, what I'm saying is that the chief minister has declared very clearly that he will not accept illegal immigrants, and people are going back absolutely on their own accord. So, and actually they're being let in because in the quiet of the night, they're just going back. Now, I think that we know that there are talks ongoing in Delhi as we speak between the BSF and the BGB. I want to say that this business of illegal immigrants is not a new phenomenon. This has been there for decades. In fact, I can tell you that when Begum Khalda Zia was Prime Minister first time, 91-96, and she came to India on an official visit, that time even in the joint statement it was recognized that yes, there is a problem of illegal immigration. It will be resolved through dialogue. But the dialogue never took place. And now that we have, under Sheikh Hasina it was there, but the good relationship between the two border guarding agencies, BSF and BGB, this is what kept everything absolutely in control, because we had worked out a very good pattern of coordinated border patrolling. There was actually a whole system of border management, joint border management, that was discussed and agreed upon. And this practice of coordinated border patrolling, that is BSF on our side and BGB on their side, but they would work together in any troublesome area or where you anticipated any difficulty. And it was a tremendous disincentive for any of the illegal activities, human trafficking, drug smuggling, gold smuggling, narcotic smuggling, your fentanyl and all that. It was a complete, disincentive to allow that to continue. But in the last 18 months, a lot of these practices had been discontinued. And I would say, if you take from June, July of 2024 till now, this is only the second time that the BSF is having its meeting.
Yeah.
So in 2 years they've been. Otherwise, the practice has been very strictly twice a year.
Right.
Every 6 months they were meeting and discussing, and a good rapport was always established. So now this time, after almost a year, they're coming again. There was one meeting in Dhaka, I think, middle or something of last year, and then this
in
meeting.
August 2025. Yeah. If
Yeah.
I may just bring in one observation here. Now, what we're witnessing is that since 1993, we are having these DG level talks every year, twice. Now, before that, they used to happen once in a year. Clearly, this is a very old issue which the two countries have not really bothered to address. Chiefly, it appears that it was because of the good relationship that Sheikh Hasina government, not really Bangladesh, but the Sheikh Hasina government and India had shared during those years. Now, it seems that it is in fact because of the change in the foreign policy under the Yunus regime that India has also gotten stricter with the illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. And now it has been breaking the fact that at least 2,860 requests for identification of these illegal immigrants have been pending with Bangladesh.
Yes. That was the practice previously, and it was very clear that if anybody is caught as an illegal immigrant, he's taken to the court, he's given a sentence. When he finishes his sentence, he's deported.
Right.
And before deportation, the Bangladesh side has to accept that, yes, he's a Bangladesh citizen and he has to go back. But this acceptance is not coming. So as you said quite rightly, about 3,000 people are currently in jail in Calcutta. And, there's even a term for these people in Bengali, where there are people who have from Bangladesh who have finished their sentence but are not going back. So you're right that the regularity of the meetings and the rapport on border issues is very important. And because Bangladesh and India attached the highest importance to their relationship, it was given priority. And even if there's some killing at the border, sometimes, because of cattle smuggling, which has been, as you know, a huge issue, people come armed even with weapons and they attack actually the BSF people, and some of them have been grievously hurt. They come with these kattas and these big knives and so on. And because of that, sometimes the BSF in self-defense has to resort to shooting. And they've even been resorting to rubber bullets, not having lethal weapons, ammunition, but having rubber bullets. But even that sometimes does not deter the people. And so they're in right of self-defense. So all these, I've always maintained that whenever such incidents happen, they happen once a year, twice a year, something like that, not more than that. There should always be immediate consultation between the two border guarding forces. BGB and BSF cross the border, the local level commanders, they should immediately meet and say, okay, what happened? Right. Let's see what happened and let's see what we can do about it. And whenever this has happened, there's never been any further problem. But if this doesn't happen, then you have a problem that, this sort of, it gets carried forward and gets, exacerbated. And of course, it comes in the Bangladesh media in a big way. So I think that the importance of this particular BSF BGB meeting taking place now in Delhi is that are they going to go back to the aspect of accepting coordinated border patrolling? Right. And I hope they do, because if they do, it will be a very major step forward in calming down the situation at the border. Because we know that, for example, again, after Chief Minister Subhendu Adhikari had taken over, this whole business of land for border fencing, former Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee had not been giving that land. And so there was a whole area between India and Bangladesh in West Bengal, 400 kilometers, something was not being fenced. And it was a major problem, and some of it is in the Chicken's Neck area as well. So now the land has been given and the fencing has started. But from Bangladesh, we've seen some strong statements. Oh, why do you want a fence? And so I hope all this calms down, and realizing the importance of good relations between Bangladesh and India, for Bangladesh as well, for both countries. I spoke, for example, when the trade relationship between India and Bangladesh was disturbed under the Yunus regime, it led to so many factories closing down because their competitiveness depended on getting thing in time.
It is also visible at the moment is that the BNP government is unable to accept the fact that these are in fact Bangladeshi immigrants. In fact, they have the Bangladeshi media, I've read so many reports, they are saying that India has suddenly started pushing back these people, and several of them are now stranded at the no man's land. So is this not true that the delay in pursuing this issue has actually and it is a delay on part of India. It might be, the background. The background may be because of Sheikh Hasina and her role, and possibly India felt that there was an obligation not to disturb her with such issues. But is it not true that it was the delay on part of India to pursue this issue that this juncture has now been reached?
Well, I have to admit that the BJP government has been very strong on pursuing this issue. And of course, it is very true also that even if the BJP government at the center is strong and determined to pursue the issue, they need the cooperation of the state governments. It is very important because, we have a good and strong federal structure, but the actual law and order at the state level is in the hands of the state police. So the cooperation of the state police and the state authorities are very essential. So we've seen, for example, that in the northeastern states, let's give the example of the 15 years when, 2009 onwards, when Sheikh Hasina was prime minister. Before that, we had such a lot of problem in the northeastern states. All the insurgent groups, all the camps in Bangladesh, the trainings and the people dying and so on because of terrorist attacks. But under Sheikh Hasina, all this stopped. And the northeastern states, because there was no support for Indian insurgent groups from Bangladesh under Sheikh Hasina, the Anup Chetia was handed back to Indian government. Paresh Bora went back to China. There was nothing. There was peace in the northeast, development, and people even forgot about the insurgent groups. In West Bengal, on the other hand, this did not happen in those 15 years because Mamata Banerjee was the chief minister. Now, because Veena Sikri has become chief minister, and he's working very actively to make sure and I must tell you also that he is doing it for certain specific objectives. One is law and order in West Bengal, because the illegal immigrants who came in, they were creating a lot of law and order problems. Taking over land, which is government land, and squatting on territories which is not their own, and then creating incidents, criminal incidents, and so on. And so now, because there's no support for them in the new milieu in West Bengal, they're just going back in large numbers. This is not happening from the other state because they have already solved the problem. The other northeastern states, you've seen, of course, in a smaller extent, it is continuing to happen from Assam and others, but nothing compared to what is happening in West Bengal.
If I may just ask you quickly about the role of the BNP government. The BNP under Tariq Rahman seems to be, of course, the government is still in the honeymoon period, so it is still time that we, start assessing, how its foreign policy is going to turn up in the future. But so far, the decisions that it has taken, the activities that the government has undertaken. How do you assess the role of Tariq Rahman's government? And do you think this is a changed Tariq Rahman from who he was 20 years back, when it was him who was blamed for being pro-Pakistan under Khalida Zia, his mother, as the Prime Minister?
Well, it's a difficult question because, yes, you're right that I was High Commissioner in Bangladesh at that very time.
Right.
When Begum Khalida Zia was Prime Minister and Tariq Rahman ran what was called Hawa Bhavan, which was, the backroom place for the government of the BNP government at that time. And yes, he was very close to Pakistan. And for 17 years when he was living in London, it was fairly well known that he was, in very close contact with Pakistan. But be that as it may, it is very good. We are very happy that the Jamaat-e-Islami has not come to power, and
there's a political force.
At the political force, because the people of Bangladesh have rejected. And this is a very important point I'm making, because we know during the 18-20 months before the elections took place, the Jamaat-e-Islami was the power behind the throne. They were absolutely running the country, and all the appointments were their people. And we know, I told you about the women who were facing such a difficult time. They wouldn't let the women go to work alone. Why are you alone? Where's your escort? Why are you wearing a teep and all that? And so I would say that the women would have voted en masse against the Jamaat-e-Islami.
Right.
And many others, maybe the minorities did, maybe even some Awami Leaguers did. So BNP has come to power with a very big mandate. But we have to also see there is two things. One is the baggage of the past.
Right.
So, Tariq Rahman should make a big effort to overcome the baggage of the past. And secondly, within the BNP, there is a strong pro-Jamaat faction.
Okay.
In fact, people who are in his cabinet, they are, known to be the leader of the pro-Jamaat faction in the BNP. Because BNP and Jamaat were partners in the alliance government under Begum Khalida Zia. So all these factors have made it, and I'm sure there are external pressure as well on Tariq Rahman, it has made it he has to watch his every step, as it were.
Right.
And he, for example, he has not been able to reverse even a single of the decisions taken under
Yunus regime.
under Yunus on the trade with India, on the connectivity with India. And so many projects were just stalled. They've not been revived again. So, as you said, 100 days have just finished. He's just completed the honeymoon period. So one hopes that now there will be a change. And, I must say that I was very surprised, even when new Chief Minister of West Bengal, Sivendra Adhikari, nobody from the Bangladesh government sent him a message of congratulations.
Right.
He's not been so. Although Bangladesh and West Bengal have a 2,200-kilometer long border. So, their interaction, their good relations are very important.
Right.
But somehow it's not there. So, but everybody is waiting and watching.
But is it because of the fact that for Tariq Rahman, even if we, for a moment presume that he might be a changed person, having lived in London for a long time, but can we say that he himself might be under pressure because of the Jamaat-e-Islami and the extremist elements? Because if you start, causing with India, and if you start allowing these illegal immigrants as Bangladeshi nationals, these extremists might start, pinching him, pushing him around, saying that you are a weak government.
No, I must say one thing. There are 2 points here. What you say about the pressure on him from Jamaat-e-Islami and the radical extremists is correct.
Okay.
That pressure is definitely there. For example, 2 days ago, there was a report in the Bangladesh media that, the Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh, the JMB, which all their people who were in jail were released under Yunus. And now they've even reopened their mosques and so on. So there's definitely an increase in radicalization and the Islamist elements in Bangladesh, which is very scary. But on the other hand, I want to point out that within Bangladesh, there has been a complete rejection by the people of what Jamaat-e-Islami stands for.
Right.
Number one. Number two, I'm seeing that the pro-liberation war groups, people who believe in, they're young today, people who may not have been born even in 1971, but they've shown that they're proud of what Bangladesh was able to achieve through the liberation war. They value that value system, the secularism, the democracy, and you're seeing them coming back in huge numbers. And in fact, today in the media you see that there's a discussion within Bangladesh between that students' party, the NCP,
right.
and Jamaat-e-Islami and the former Yunus, who let the Awami League back in again.
Right.
They're discussing that because they know that support for what the Awami League represents. The party is banned. But recently, yesterday or day before, the legal advisor of Tariq Rahman said that Awami League people can stand in their independent capacity.
Independent capacity.
So that's a big
local
move
elections,
ahead.
yes.
So I would say that perhaps Tariq Rahman is thinking of moving slowly back to a more normal democratic society. Because what we have today is not a democratic society.
Right.
You can't ban a political party. It's unconstitutional in a democracy.
And also, if I may just ask, because politicians are the same across borders, is it also because it is always easier and better to deal with a political force as your adversary rather than having an extremist element?
Of course, I think for BNP, I think having a political force like the Awami League, you can all win elections. They were doing it turn by turn earlier.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's fine.
And that's how politicians work.
Exactly. So that's how, exactly. But extremism is something that is A, very difficult to deal with.
Right.
B, they want to control the country. And we've seen what Pakistan is trying to do in Bangladesh. They've embedded themselves with the Bangladesh army. They put their brigadiers there. They've lifted all the 50-year-old restrictions on trade, visas, connectivity, students, etc. From Pakistan. So there's a huge upsurge.
And in fact, Pakistan has recently trained under-trainee bureaucrats of Bangladesh.
Exactly.
It is offering 500 scholarships to Bangladeshi students, which means that they're working on the Bangladeshi psyche.
Of course, they've been doing that because they've seen what India has been, the cooperation that was there with India. And all this is happening. It has not been reversed at all. None of the Pakistan steps have been reversed yet by Tariq Rahman government. And it is evident that the people are not satisfied. That is the key point I want to make. That, one talks only about governments and what political parties want, but one has to see what the pulse of the people is.
Right.
They did not vote for Jamaat-e-Islami despite the maximum pressure
Right.
that Jamaat-e-Islami exerted, and Jamaat-e-Islami was all set to come to power.
Right.
They were really expecting it.
If I may also ask you, Master Sikri, here about the latest developments on the front of foreign policy of Bangladesh vis-a-vis Turkey. Turkish foreign minister has just paid a visit to
Yeah,
Bangladesh. I think it has been after a very long time that somebody from Turkey
yeah.
has arrived there. Erdogan's wife had visited, several years back. How do you view this Pakistan, Turkey, Bangladesh axis of sorts emerging? Or is there one or is there none?
Oh, there is, because Turkey has and Pakistan have been working hand in hand. The regime changed when Sheikh Hasina was ousted. It was a purely meticulously designed regime change operation.
Okay.
And led by Pakistan, but with the support of the Western powers. Even Muhammad Yunus himself described it as meticulously planned. It was not spontaneous. It was not a students' revolt.
Right.
Nothing of the kind. Turkey has been working hand in hand with Pakistan. I
Right.
can tell you, in September 2024,
Yes.
few weeks after the change, I remember a Turkish delegation coming to Bangladesh, and I read in the paper, the Turkish minister told Yunus, I will replace everything India gives to Bangladesh. So their objective, their mindset was clear even from then. And now you have things like a drone factory being built in Bangladesh by the Turkish defense authorities. And so obviously Turkey is very involved in this ideological fight
Right.
in Bangladesh. And they have been it's very dangerous what is happening, what Turkey is doing. It's very dangerous, and India has certainly been taking note of it.
Master Sikri, here, if I may also ask you what India has also been, watching very closely. We recently had a visit by the Myanmar president, and you would have definitely noted that the president was very firm. He reassured our prime minister, saying that the Myanmar territory will not be used for forces inimical to India. Does India have Bangladesh in its mind when when it deals with Myanmar now?
No, I think the Myanmar issue is very complex,
Okay.
and of course, we have again a very long land border and maritime border with Myanmar. So obviously, what happens in Myanmar is very important to
Right.
us, but also we have to deal with the government in power in Bangladesh, in Myanmar, because of the land border and the maritime border. And again, the same Northeast Indian insurgent groups. Paresh Borua comes to India through Myanmar and all
Yeah.
that. So obviously, we have to be in touch with the government of the day on a day-to-day basis. I think what is very interesting in what is happening Myanmar and Bangladesh is very interesting to watch because of what is happening in the Arakan region of Myanmar and the Arakan army, which has established itself in Rakhine state. And we also know that the Myanmar army, in many areas along the border with India, it is the ethnic armed organizations who are holding power. It's not even the Myanmar army. Although now, after the elections and the new president, and there's been a new army chief, there are a lot of activities now that they're trying to take back the border control from these ethnic armed organizations and take it back by the Myanmar military. In some cases, they've been successful. But what is happening in Rakhine state and the Arakan army is certainly something of great global importance. Pakistan is very interested in that. Turkey is very interested in that. The Rohingyas want, to have a state for themselves within the Rakhine state. And certainly the Arakan army is not in favor of that. So there is talk that is Bangladesh cooperating, Bangladesh army and the Rohingyas cooperating with the Myanmar army, to take on the Arakanis, the Arakan army. It's a very complex situation. Security forces are very disturbed, and the whole Cox's Bazar area, the Chittagong Hill Tract area, is today very volatile. There's great interest by big powers in what is happening. China and Russia actively on the Myanmar side. America here closely cooperating with, they're concluding all these GSOMIA and ACSA agreements with Bangladesh. They have a non-disclosure agreement with Bangladesh. So this has become, right in our neighborhood, a very big area of big power complexities, political, and vying for control.
This is very important what you've been saying, and also you mentioned regime change, and that's exactly what I want to ask you also. The Bangladesh Human Rights Watch has come out with a very in-depth report about how the US flooded money into Bangladesh, which was, the influx of money remained flat through the 2000s, accelerated from 2018 onwards, and reached at an all-time peak in 2024, exactly the year of the regime change in Bangladesh and declined in 2025 and 26. How do you view these numbers? Do you see a US hand behind the regime change in Bangladesh?
Well, I must say what you said, that when President Trump came to power second time, 2025 January, and he shut down the USAID, I remember one of the remarks he made. I saw that, we had given $250 million, $250 million to Bangladesh for democracy, for, music. I don't know what we were doing.
Yes.
He said that. He made that statement. So
Right.
it was very clear. And of course, once USAID shut, then all that money just completely stopped. But by that time, the damage had already, been
Done. Yeah.
been done. So that is very much there. You're seeing, as I told you, the agreements now being worked out between Bangladesh and USA. They have a very unusual non-disclosure agreement. A trade deal has been signed. Security and logistics arrangements are being worked out. So all these things have made this whole region much more volatile, and that is why of much more serious concern for India to make sure that our national interests, our security interests in the entire northeast and all along the border with Bangladesh should not be affected.
I will also want to ask you, ma'am, about the mention of by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina once, of the Saint Martin Island. Do you see that was a reason for the possible influx of money from the US? Secondly, how do you see the current regime dealing with it now?
Well, Saint Martin's Island, nobody knows in who's holding that island now. There's a big question about it. Where it is, nobody's been allowed to visit St. Martin's Island. Even there was an official note during the Yunus regime saying no tourists can go there. All the tourist infrastructure was burned to the ground. So who controls St. Martin's Island today? I think it's a very important question, and it's a question mark.
So is that a space which is open for the US?
Well, there was a lot of talk, that processing the mineral sands of the Cox's Bazar beaches and
Right.
putting, critical minerals, processing them on St. Martin's Island, so on. There's a lot of talk, but yes, it is certainly one of the issues.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for this talk. So this has been an enlightening and a very in-depth conversation with Ambassador Sikri. We'll keep bringing you such distinguished personalities in future as well. Stay tuned to India Abroad and keep watching.
Thank you.